Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And we are going to look at this year's Valentine's Day energy pattern to be able to assess whether or not we will be able to create harmony and love around us. This is a beautiful festival, although it is kind of funny that it is in February when it's dark and gloomy. And when you look around, you don't really see too many things that could be interpreted as signs of hope. The war is still raging. All kinds of atrocities are being committed by the two parties, by the fighting parties. Our leaders in the EU are crazy and totally out of their minds. They are dishonest, they are corrupt, and they don't really care for our well-being, our European, the well-being of the European people. So it's not a nice period. It's not a nice time to be alive and to experience these hardships. Nevertheless, that is why we need to find nice times, nice moments, and things to celebrate. And that's exactly what a Valentine's Day is there for, because everyone has someone to love. Right? At least I do hope so. So let's take a look at today. This year's Valentine's Day energy pattern, and this is for the Budapest chart, and it doesn't really matter where you are at the moment and what place you are at and how you look at it, because I'm not going to show you anything that is very much territory linked. We are only going to see things that are there no matter where you are. So we are not going to look at the angles or the moon. The moon will be in Sagittarius almost all day. You can see that it is about 5 degrees Sag in Budapest, which means this is noon, by the way. This is a noon chart. So it means that it moved from Scorpio to Sag about 10 hours ago, so sometime in the small hours. If you go west from Budapest, definitely it's going to be Sag all day. But we are not going to look at. We only are going to look at some features of this chart. Things that you can utilize wherever you are. It doesn't matter. And these are 4 conjunctions, first and foremost. And the first one is the Sun-Saturn blocking conjunction. Now, every year the Sun will reach the degree of Saturn and will conjoin with it. And for a few days, it's going to be an applying conjunction, which means it's a blocking conjunction, but because here's Saturn, like a wall, and the Sun is nearing it, and then it becomes within orb, but it's still blocking, and then the conjunction is exact, and then the Sun is separating from Saturn, and that's the moment when the blocking conjunction becomes some sort of supporting conjunction. It's not much better, to say the least, because think about it. Saturn is the lord of karma. It's the last of the visible planets. The ancients thought that Saturn is guarding our sphere of life. Behind its orbit is chaos. And of course, we link to it hardships and duties and chores and life lessons, but also boundaries and stability and things to learn and things to trust. So all kinds of ancient, old, traditional values are also linked to Saturn. So if we come to think about from this perspective, then we can say that the Sun-Saturn conjunction gives you the potential to kind of leave your own ego behind. By the way, never get rid of your ego. You need your ego in the 3rd dimension, because the ego makes you separate from everyone else and makes you able to make choices and make mistakes and then realize your mistakes and actually take responsibility. So you need your ego. If anyone wants you to get rid of your ego, run for your life, because that person doesn't want you to thrive and be a good person. So you do need the ego. But in this sense, what you should see is your boundaries, and also where those boundaries are ending. And it teaches you to kind of step behind, take one step backwards and assess the situation from that point of view, and don't rush into anything. So when you are in a committed partnership, maybe this moment is a good idea to consider your partner's needs and your partner's wishes. That's what, to me, that's what the Saturn-Sun conjunction symbolizes. The other conjunction is really beautiful. I'm sure that a number of astrologers are going to harp about this Neptune-Venus conjunction in Pisces. It's really beautiful because you have the two love planets. Of course, Neptune is a higher octave of Venus. Venus is linked to carnal love, to regular human love, physical love on the third dimension, among other things, of course, our harmony, our well-being, money issues, creating security around us with emotions and finances. That's also linked to Venus. And Neptune is the higher octave, meaning transcendental love, universal love, divine love, something that transcends the physical plane. So it's not the carnal aspects, it's really the divine aspects of love. And now that they are conjoining, gives us the potential to experience both at the same time. This in the sign of Neptune, where Neptune also rules, of course, Pisces, and Venus is elevated in Pisces. So this is a very strong conjunction. It's really like a beautiful gift on Valentine's Day. The next conjunction is something that I made a whole video about, is the Vesta Astrea conjunction in Aries. Actually, this is one of the main karmic astrological features of the period. Vesta, besides the archetype of the high priestess, is also the focusing principle, the tunnel vision principle, where I can concentrate on something exclusively by excluding everything else. And Astrea in karmic astrology is the karma breaker, the destiny changer. So what you can and should do now is to concentrate, Vesta, on how to break old embedded rigid karma, how to change your destiny, how to get rid of things that are not for your benefit. That's exactly what this conjunction means. Sometimes it's difficult for people to understand what karma breaking is. It's a very simple issue, really. Take a look at your life. Take a look at what are the things that you cling to without actually knowing why. What are the bad habits that you keep doing, although you know it's not serving you, things like that. So those could be behavior patterns, choices, decisions. And if you could just stop, take a step backwards and look at the whole thing kind of unemotionally, rationally, then you could see that it doesn't serve you, those don't serve you anymore, and you could actually try to get out of it. That's what the Vesta Astrea conjunction in Aries provides you with. And of course, the energy pattern of Aries gives you a nice cardinal fire push, fires the element of transformation, and at the same time, the cardinal energy is the go-getting energy. And there is kind of a triple conjunction involving Jupiter, Chiron, and Juno. A couple of weeks ago, there was an exact Jupiter-Juno conjunction, marriage made in heaven. You can find that video as well. I know I should give you these short lists, which I can't. I need to learn this, or if really I need to sit down with someone who knows YouTube. And by the way, I really express certain ideas which are by no means mainstream, but I'm a very brave person and I don't really care. But if in case YouTube shuts me down, I'm going to go over to Rumble. So if you lose me on, all of a sudden you can't find my channel on YouTube, it's because I've been banned. Hopefully it's not going to happen, but you never know, because censorship is really tightening everywhere. And they actually now are talking about how good this is. Really, censorship is good. So we are going to communism, really. So It's ridiculous how the Western world is buying this stupidity. Anyhow, so if you don't find me on YouTube, you may find me on Rumble. I will start posting videos on Rumble as well. Anyhow, so this triple conjunction is really interesting because now the Jupiter-Juno conjunction is, of course, not there anymore. We will have a Jupiter-Chiron conjunction. When the moment comes, I will make a video on this and explain to you what it means. But at the moment, we have a separating Chiron-Juno conjunction. And this on Valentine's Day is a funny energy because Juno, of course, is anything like committed relationships, things that are really meaningful and long-term. And of course, Chiron is karmic wounds. And Chiron-Juno aspects are about karmic wounds regarding committed relationships, marriages, for instance. And the funny part is that, yes, this conjunction can indicate that on this day and during these days, some really deep karmic wounds around your relationship issues can resurface, but you will have the potential to heal them. And that's the key. With Chiron, there's always the wound, the pain, and the healing aspect. So it's not just bad. Okay, so these four conjunctions are the main highlights of the 14th of February on Valentine's Day. And there is this loose, non-closing planetary picture around 23 to 27 degrees of the signs. Those who know me well, you know that I use very, very tight orbs. For me to have a planetary picture, the aspects have to be within 2 degrees. And there is a cardinal Earth engine. Engines are funny configurations because they are made up by 3 very different aspects, 3 aspects that belong to very, very different aspect families. A square is, of course, a tension aspect. The trine is a harmony-creating or harmonious aspect. And then the quincunx is a karmic aspect. And the 3 of them, when they join in a pattern that we call engine, describe some sort of very intense drive and stamina. And the best one out of them is the cardinal Earth engine, because Earth is the element of the 3rd dimension, and the potential to bring things down to the Earth plane, create something on the Earth plane that is practical, useful, and down to Earth. And cardinal, of course, is the modality of initiation, of commencement. So this is really brilliant. But here's the problem, that Lilith, the asteroid Lilith, which is retrograde at the moment, you can always look at the chart wheel and see if you see magenta glyphs. Those are the retrograde ones. And Lilith is the asteroid Lilith represents the first turning point of the Lilith myths, and it denotes revolt against injustice. Hygeia is of course, our word hygiene comes from her name, and she's the one who creates sacred spaces, well-being, health. So this is what we are striving towards, but we won't be able to because there's an exact square between Aries, drastically altered outward circumstances, and Hygeia. This is a very deep square. It's a cardinal square, but still it simply symbolizes what we are trying to do now, that this dark and gloomy and cold and war-packed and tension-packed period, which is very depressing. And we are really striving towards some sort of normalcy, harmony, but the war and this whole state of affairs that we are being pushed in the world is really disrupting everything. So these are 2 opposing forces here, unfortunately. And the rest of the configuration is not really closing. For instance, the Sun, Hygeia, is not closing into semi-sextile. You do have the semi-sextile between the Sun, Neptune, Venus, Sun, and also the Aries, Venus, the Aries Neptune is closing. Yes, that's what it is closing. You do have two dissolved oppositions. One is Hygeia, which is a traditional dissolution because with a trine and a sextile, and then Aries, which is not very nice dissolution with two karmic aspects, the semi-sextile and the quincunx. And of course, the Venus-Neptune conjunction, which is really beautiful, is opposite Lilith, which is revolt against injustice. So you can actually feel the tension of these feminine archetypes. The transcendental celestial objects kind of give us the karmic background of the space-time moment. Again, it is color-coded. Purple or magenta are asteroids. They always denote the personal karmic levels. The blue is for TNOs and centaurs, karmic wounds, how we earn those karmic wounds and what we did about them, whether they became phobias and insecurities or special traits. And then the red are fixed stars. And here I'm going to present you with two fixed stars. Sorry about that. What did I do? Anyhow, the two fixed stars, that I haven't shown you yet, Sador, which is Gamma Cygnus, and Denebola, which is Beta Leo. And we are going to look at it in a minute. And so on the sun, you have Tah and Nephthys, two Egyptian figures. Tah is the god who is making who's creating mankind out of clay, and Nephthys is a funny archetype. She is the wife of Seth, and she represents the feminine who knows very well that her husband, her spouse, her boyfriend is a bad person, is a ruffian, to use an old word, or is really some sort of terrorist or whatever. But she stays with him. She cherishes him no matter what. So that's an interesting archetype, to say the least, on Valentine's Day. And as I said, I'm going to show you Sador now. Sador is Gamma Cygnus. And the whole constellation Cygnus, the celestial swan, is a beautiful constellation. It's also called the Northern Cross, and it represents a beautiful bird flying towards the North Pole. It is on the Milky Way. So it has very, very bright stars. And actually, we usually call Deneb Adige, the alpha star, the heart of Cygnus, but Sador is more like it's a higher heart chakra, to use Judy Hall's expression. And then Denebola, which is also important in this configuration, is Beta Leo. The whole constellation of Leo is about rulership, reign, sovereignty. And Denebola, which is the tail of the celestial lion, represents some sort of unrealized or very instinctive rulership. So something that we need to learn and make it conscious or externalize it. Okay, that's on the sun. As I said, on Lilith, you see the Denebola, so we are not going to look at it again. And on Saturn, you have Sekhmet, the third of the there's going to be a fourth Egyptian archetype, and Krantor, to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is the centaur, which describes situations where you become a victim or even die as a result of being at the wrong time at the wrong place. So it's some sort of karmic substitution or taking over someone else's karma, something like that. On Venus Neptune, you have Arachne, one of the hubris asteroids, Okiro, who is actually someone who is hiding her own knowledge and own unique traits because she doesn't want to be punished. So she turns herself into a horse. So instead of half human, she becomes completely animal and forgets to speak. And of course, Markov is still Alpha Pegasus, which represents the bright ideas spring out of your head. On Hygeia, you have Hylonom, and Hylonom or Hylonom is a very sorrow archetype. it describes unconsolable grief, deep unconsolable grief and suffering. And in this time of the year, when we have the war and we have all sorts of hardships, it actually represents the fact that no matter how we strive and crave normalcy and happiness and some sort of harmony, we won't be able to because there's too much suffering and too much grief. And on Aries, you have Sphinx and Tisiphone. Tisiphone is, of course, the god or goddess of, I think she's a goddess of revenge, not a nice archetype. But Sphinx, of course, again, is secret, Egyptian secret. So that's those are the karmic layers. Here are the two drawings of the constellations. And here you have another aspect of it. So what happens if we look at further things at 25 degrees of the signs? I do this quite often. If I see that the chart itself is not very, very strong, or it has some indication of a potential karmic issue or theme, but I'm not exactly sure whether I'm right or not, then what I do is I try to find similar, things on a similar degree. And here I tend to use very tight orbs, really within 1 degree either side of the configurations. And sure enough, this is what we found. In Taurus, there are 2 centaurs / TNOs. As I said so many times, centaurs are inner Kuiper belt objects. They usually have an orbital span of something between 24 and 133 years. So you could say that they are within the human existence. Most of the time they are. There are a couple of ones that are beyond the human existence. For instance, Ceres, which has a 133-year orbit. But they are usually the inner Kuiper belt objects. These are hybrid beings, half horse, half human, and they represent our karmic wounds. And then the TNOs, which are the outer Kuiper belt objects, they have a much longer orbital period. Some have about 250 to 300, and some have like 600-700. Some have even more. You can measure it in the thousands of years. So those are the TNOs or ETNOs, and they are always linked to creation. How you created, what you created, how successful you were in creating things. So they are also linked to your wounds, but in a different level, less personal and more universal in effect. And in Taurus, at 24 degrees, you have Mors Somnus and Alicanto. Mors Somnus was prominent during the pandemic because Mors Somnus represents the pair of brothers that are in Greek, Hypnos and Thanatos, death and sleep, deep sleep. And to me, Mors Somnus really represents the pharmaceutical complex and their dishonesty. And Alicanto is really expressing this because Alicanto is a bird that is eating precious metal, and every time it eats too much, it's unable to fly. And this is brilliant, really, because that's exactly what happened. These guys got so greedy and so dishonest, and they didn't care about the well-being and health of people. They simply produced jabs that are, first of all, not preventing the contagiousness of that fabricated virus. And it's just so dishonest. It's really so dishonest. And opposite it, you have two really opposing forces of nature, because Diavana represent the divas, the fairies, which are very, very prominent in Transylvania, for instance. Actually, the whole Transylvania in old times was called fairyland. And Typhoon is the destructive forces of nature. So those are opposed to Mors Somnus and Alicanto. And you have all kinds of, you can actually take a look at the, what sort of configurations are forming. And if we again kind of open up further, what we find here is two more archetypes that are coming up to 24 degrees, but not yet there. If I keep using the 1 degree to with the sun, I allow 1.5 to 2 degrees, but otherwise I usually remain at 1 to 1.5 degrees. And to the more somnus alicanto group, you find Pelion at 22 degrees 23. Pelion is the mountain or where the caves for the centaurs are. So it represents two things: the home, the base, but also the mountain of life that the incarnating soul needs to climb in order to get to the top and achieve something. And Prometheus is a really nasty centaur because it gives you the creeps, really, because he was invited to a wedding where he gets drunk and rapes the people there. So it's a nasty, nasty, nasty aspect of the whole Valentine's Day theme or topic. So that's it. That's our Valentine's Day this year. And I do wish you happy Valentine's Day. Do love someone and try to express your love in a nice way. Buy flowers, buy chocolate, take your lover to a theater for a walk in the park, or just hold her hands or his hands. Ladies, buy a nice bottle of wine for your spouse or your partner. Be happy, please. Okay, life is really short. So be happy as you can be. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.